Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The number of COVID-19 cases in the United States has reached more than 1.4 million. That's according to Johns Hopkins University. The US is now the country with the most confirmed number of deaths and cases of COVID-19 in the world. In the past 2 months, more than 36.5 million Americans have applied for unemployment benefits, a record high in American history. In New York City, the mayor, Bill de Blasio, declared that 100 children have been diagnosed with a rare inflammatory syndrome, which might be a form of Kawasaki disease and could be a previously unnoticed symptom of COVID-19. The disease has caused 3 deaths in the state of New York so far. Official figures suggest that Germany's economy has shrunk by 2.2% in the first 3 months of this year, pushing the country into recession. It was the biggest quarterly fall since 2009, when the country was engulfed in the global financial crisis. The figures from the Federal Statistics Office come as Germany takes its first tentative steps to exit lockdown. Shops are reopening, pupils will gradually return to class, and football is restarting behind closed doors. In Brazil, the state of Sao Paulo is building thousands of vertical funeral plots for coronavirus victims as the country's pandemic death toll edges towards 14,000. Brazil is Latin America's ground zero for coronavirus infections with over 200,000 confirmed cases. Sao Paulo is one of the worst affected states of Brazil. Its governor has cautioned against a rush to lifting the lockdown in the state, despite criticism from President Jair Bolsonaro that quarantine is heavily affecting the economy. Bolsonaro's popularity has plummeted since the outbreak began in Brazil. According to recent polls, 43% of Brazilians thought he was doing a bad job in dealing with the pandemic. As in Brazil, the impact of the pandemic is starting to hit several other South American countries hard. In Peru, hospitals in the Amazon region are struggling under the weight of the coronavirus pandemic, with some doctors saying the hospital system has collapsed. At the same time, in the Amazon region, local indigenous communities are pleading the government for help, saying there is no more food and children have resorted to stripping local plants for basic sustenance. In Venezuela, the pandemic and the consequential lockdown measures are hitting a population already suffering from 6 years of hyperinflation. Since the beginning of the restrictive quarantine measures in the country, finding food has become increasingly difficult, pushing more and more people in the countryside to rely on alternative sources of sustenance, such as cow blood. While in Chile, in the capital Santiago, Venezuelan migrants have been forced out into the streets, unable to work amid lockdown and unable to return home due to the region's closed borders. The United Nations estimates that almost 4 million Venezuelans have left the country in recent years. A typhoon in the Philippines has hit the northern island of Luzon, bringing heavy winds and rains, sending thousands of people fleeing to temporary shelters. Typhoon Vongfong is the first named storm to hit the West Pacific. In the town of Buhi, hundreds of people have taken shelter inside schools while practicing social distancing amid the coronavirus pandemic. Provincial and city governments estimated that around 200,000 people have been evacuated so far. And finally, while a growing number of African countries have made the use of face masks compulsory to curb the spread of coronavirus, fashion lovers in the biggest cities are combining style and safety by donning colourful and artistic masks. In Senegal and South Africa, the number of fashion stylists embracing this new trend has been booming in recent weeks. And the trend is proving to be a big gain to local tailors who are physically making the masks.
In the beginning of the pandemic, I thought that this was going to last just maybe a few months. Now I do believe that in the next 2 years, maybe, we're going to have to adapt and live with this virus. And, I think as a fashion designer, we're going to have to integrate with each outfit fashion masks, basically.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.